Welcome back, Bulls fans. I have a player that I think could be a very good bargain contract for the Bulls this offseason, and that's Day'Ron Sharpe. So I'm going to tell you guys about some strengths I've been seeing, some weaknesses I've been seeing, and overall why I think he could be a good value signing. But before I get too deep into it, I want to know, are you guys excited with everything going on with the rebuild? Because so far I'm really excited and I've been loving this, but I want to know if you guys are. So let me know by hitting that like button down below. So Day'Ron Sharpe is a 24-year-old center and power forward. I've seen him listed as both, but he's mostly a center. He just wrapped up his 5th year in the league in Brooklyn. He's 6'10" with a 7-foot wingspan. So overall, the measurables are definitely there, which is very good. And I'm I'm liking what I'm seeing when it comes to his measurables, his height, his wingspan. I'll get into his wingspan in a little bit, but his combine from the draft a couple years ago was pretty good. So overall, not too much to complain about there. For his career, he is averaging 7 points per game on 56.4% shooting, 5.9 rebounds, 1.5 assists, zero point 0.6 steals, and 0.6 blocks per game in 15 and a half minutes per game. And it's really that 15 and a half minutes per game that I think is important here, because that kind of gives the context to everything. Because you see 7 and 6, and you're like, okay, it's okay averages. And then you see it's in 15 minutes a game, and you're like, okay, 7 and 6 in 15, that's pretty good. Not to mention the 1.5 assists, pretty good for a center. And overall, just a lot of being able to produce in a limited role, because he's been the backup his whole career up to this point. And I'm not going to hold that against him. I'm not going to fault him for that, because the Nets center for pretty much his whole career has been Nicholas Claxton. It's going to be hard to win the starting job when you're going up against a center like Claxton. Claxton's one of my favorite bigs in the league, and just a really underrated big in my opinion. So it it's not really fair to say, "Oh, you're not that great of a player because you're a career backup," when the reason you've been a career backup is because it's Nicholas Claxton. So for his strengths, the first one that was really what jumped out to me was the scoring, specifically the efficiency. 56.4% for his career, 60% last season, and also had 65% from inside the arc last season. So, very efficient scorer, not going to take a ton of shots that he doesn't need to take. Definitely a big that knows what he's capable of, knows what his strengths are, knows how to get his shots, but knows how to get them in the flow of the offense, and doesn't really have to force anything to get his shots. Not to mention, a big reason for his efficiency is that third strength there. Very good lob threat. I mean, we've seen a lot from Brooklyn. Brooklyn is very much a lob it to the center type of offense. Claxton is always catching lobs. Sharpe is always catching lobs, which, I mean, hey, the most efficient shot in basketball is a dunk layup, but that is the most efficient shot in the game. So if you can catch lobs in multiple different ways and at a high rate, no, better, even better. Like, I don't know what more to say about it. it it's the one of the easiest ways to get the easiest bucket in the game. Next is his passing, and that's another one that really jumped out at me. For his career, like I said, averaging 1.5 assists per game. This season specifically, he averaged over 2 assists per game. As a backup, he averaged 18.7 minutes per game this year, only started like 4 to 5 games. So the fact that he's able to average 2 assists in a position where most starters don't even really get 2 assists, I mean, what more can you say? And that's one thing that I think would be really cool about signing Sharpe is I think having a big that is a capable passer like that could really open up this offense and really add another layer to it. Because being able to pass even average rate as a center is huge because, I mean, when the center gets the ball, they are most likely to have the defense collapse on them. So if you're a good enough passer to be able to make the read to kick it out once the defense collapses, golden. Next is the rebounding. And the rebounding has been great so far, given the backup limited minutes. For his career, averaging almost 6 a game, this past season averaged 7 a game. So, I mean, the best way to describe it is this last strength just kind of ties everything together. Every stat that I've seen as a strength, every skill that I've seen as a strength, I really see as such a big strength because he's able to do it so productively in such a diminished role. Like, we're talking about a guy who has never averaged 20 minutes per game in a season in his career in 5 years. And he's still putting up really productive numbers for those minutes. Like, a lot of guys you're not going to see getting 7 to 8 boards in less than 20 minutes a game. You're not going to see these guys, especially the centers, getting assist numbers like that. Like, for centers, you're not going to see many centers getting 2 assists off the bench. So overall, I just think so far in his career, he's shown that no matter how many minutes you give him, he will make the most of them and be productive in those minutes. So I don't see why bringing him in, giving him a bigger role, increasing his minutes, I don't see why he couldn't just flat out produce more and have even better stats and be even more impactful than he has been in his career. Now, as you guys know, as I always say, unfortunately with strengths come weaknesses. For his weaknesses, the biggest one, at least given the era that we're in, is the floor spacing. He's averaging 27% from 3 for his career. Last year averaged 23% for the season. And it's not even just the efficiency. It's also the fact that he's not shooting them, which is what really concerns me about his floor spacing. Is it's one thing to have a low percentage because you're chucking up shots. It's another to have a low percentage when you're not really taking the shot. He's averaging less than a 3. He averaged less than a 3 last season and shot well under 30%. Now, if he was shooting 2 to 3 a game, I would be like, okay, it's just not falling. But if he's not even shooting one of them a game and it's not falling, then I'm like, okay, if he wants to add that to his game, he has to genuinely work on it. It's not one of those where it's just, oh, just get the rhythm going. The next weakness I see is blocks. Now, for me, I personally would like my bigs closing in on 1.5 blocks per game, but Day'Ron didn't average even 1 block last season, and as you saw from the stats page, is averaging barely over half a block for his career. Now, I know I've talked a lot about him having a limited role, and I do think that could play a factor in him not having too many blocks per game. But it's one of those where he's, how do I put this? He's not producing that in a position where even backups are producing blocks at a pretty decent clip. Like Jay Huff wasn't the full-time starter all year for Indiana. He was towards the top of the league in blocks. He averaged 2 blocks a game. There's so many backups in the league that are averaging in that 1.3 to 1.6 blocks per game range that I don't think saying, oh, he's a backup, he's not playing 30 minutes a game, I don't think that's a good enough reasoning and excuse to not be averaging over a block per game as a center. But, and I think that also ties into the third weakness. I mentioned earlier that I would talk about the wingspan. The wingspan isn't bad by any means. He has a positive wingspan. His wingspan is much longer than his height, which is always what you want, especially from a center. But when you see all these guys like Wemby, like Walker Kessler, like Rudy Gobert, that just have these pterodactyl-like wingspans, it's really hard to look at a center like Sharpe who has a pretty average wingspan comparatively to his height, and it just makes you sit back and be like, I wish the wingspan was a little bit bigger. Like I said, it's not like he's 6'10 with a 6'10 wingspan. So definitely a good wingspan comparatively to his height. Just one of those where it's like, it leaves a little bit to be desired. You just wish it was a little bit bigger of a wingspan. So not the biggest weakness, but a weakness nonetheless. Free throws is another weakness. Shooting under 70% for his career. And I know that bigs aren't going to be shooting 90% from the line like guards typically are, like a decent amount of wings can. I know you're not going to see that. I know it's going to be hard to find a big that's even shooting like 85% from the line. But in today's NBA, that is the most talented it's ever been, with people shooting the most efficiently they ever have across the board, and just overall shooting ability being at its all-time highest and best, I don't think you can get by shooting under 70% from the free throw line anymore. Now, it's not terribly far under 70%. It was about 67% last year. But like I said, in today's NBA, even if you even if you're not an elite shooter, you still should be able to hit your free throws above 70%. Free is in the name. You should be able to hit them at above 70%. Like, I'm not asking him to shoot 80% from the free throw line. I'm not asking him to shoot 90% from the line. I'm not even asking for 75%. Just as long as your free throw percentage is above 70.00%, I'm going to be happy. And he's not there right now. So definitely a lot of room for improvement in a place where he should be looking to improve. And the final weakness I have is his injury history. Now, he hasn't had a crazy amount of massive injuries. It's more so he has 1 to 2 pretty decent sized injuries, and then just a laundry list of just kind of bang up injuries. Like, he's known to have a hamstring issue. It hampered him a lot early on, and this season he got shut down at the end of the year when he tore his UCL in his thumb and had season-ending surgery for that. So, it's one of those where it's concerning because even though it's not a high frequency of severe injuries, it is a high frequency of missing games due to tiny bang up injuries. And honestly, that is why I do think he could be a very good bargain contract. Is with the injury history, I do think the Bulls are in the right to say, we know this is what you want, but you have a track record of injuries. We still want to see you in Chicago. We still want you here, but we see that you haven't proven to go through a season 100% healthy. We're going to knock it down a couple million. I think they're completely in the right to do that. And if we're able to do that, I think Sharpe can be such a good value contract. And that leads me into my thoughts, which kind of already been saying throughout the video. As I just said, I think as it says up there, especially if Walker Kessler doesn't work out, because I do think he rightfully will command a near max to a max contract. And I would be willing to pay it. I don't know if the Bulls are going to be willing to pay it because he has also had some injuries. So if Walker is asking for too much money, I say immediately pivot to Day'Ron Sharpe. He does, I'm not going to say he does exactly what Walker does, but they have very similar skill sets. And Day'Ron Day'Ron has that skill set and produces in a similar fashion to Walker and could be a fraction of the price. Because like I said, that injury history, you can sit there and say, Day'Ron, you have this track record, you have this laundry list of minor injuries. We don't want to pay you this full contract if you're not going to be 100% healthy for it. We're still going to offer you a contract. We're just going to knock it down a couple million. If that's the case, he could be a steal. He could be a steal if you give him a bigger role because he's producing so well in such a diminished role that there's no reason to think he wouldn't only produce better and be a more impactful center in a bigger role. So overall, he's not going to be the guy that I'm going to start the offseason trying to get, but he's going to be that second guy. Like I said, Walker doesn't work out. Don't even waste your time. Pivot to Day'Ron. Not to mention, like I said, with all the cap we have, if we get Day'Ron at a bargain and put him next to Jalen Smith, get a center in the draft, we're going to have a pretty decent center room, which is something we haven't been able to say in a few years. So I just think overall, given the fact that we could probably get him for a bargain, it makes no sense not to try and go for it. But given everything I've told you guys today, all the strengths, the weaknesses, the stats, the measurables, I want to know what you guys think. Would you guys consider Day'Ron Sharpe a good move for the Bulls? Comment totally or absolutely not down below. And when you comment that, please give me a reason as to why. I love discussing this with you guys. I love seeing where your guys' heads are at. So when you comment, if it's a good move or not, please let me know why you think that way. Now, please make sure you're sharing. Please make sure you're subscribing. We're trying to reach 1,900 subscribers. We're roughly 60 away, and every subscriber matters. Every share, every like matters. We want to make sure you guys are seeing all of our content. Jordan and I have a ton of off-season content still left to be made. We are having a blast making it too. So make sure you're subscribing so that you don't miss any of it. With that being said, thanks for joining. Share, like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Make sure you're also following us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We post there every day as well. And overall, I would just like to say thanks for being here. We love the community we're building. Jordan and I talk about it all the time. We love how interactive you guys are. We love discussing with you guys. We love seeing where your guys' heads are at, seeing where you align with us, where you don't align with us. We're having a blast this offseason. We hope you are too. And overall, just very grateful to have you guys here. With that being said, I hope everyone has an amazing rest of their day. As always, see Red Bulls Nation.